So today I'm jumping on to talk about summer self-care because sometimes we get a bit swept up in the summer and all the heightened energies that we feel. And sometimes that means that we basically hit a wall at some point during the summer where we're extremely tired, or maybe we get like a summer cold or a flu, or maybe something else comes up that just basically means we have to literally just stop and look after ourselves. So hopefully, in order to prevent that, like physical block to hit you, I thought I'd do a little bit talk about the importance of self-care and also relaxing during the summer. And yeah, basically, hopefully you can join me for the next 15 minutes. I've taken this time to relax, and I've curled up with my favorite herbal tea, which today, by the way, is lemon, ginger, and manuka honey. And I'm not even suffering from a cold or anything like that. I just fancied it. As always, if you're watching live, hashtag live. If you've got on replay, hashtag replay. If you've got any questions, then please let me know. So, summer self-care, do we need it? Obviously, in the summer, there is such a buzz. Everything is growing, everything is green. If you live in the northern hemisphere where it's summer, then obviously we've got more daylight. If you live really high up in the north, in Norway, Sweden, Finland, you might be reaching into the zone where you've got 24-hour daylight. And sometimes that can feel a bit exhausting. In the start, in the beginning of summer, I think everyone has this feeling of the heightened energy, and it's really good. And it makes us want to do all sorts of things. But then also, the summer has this lovely antidote, which is basically that we need to relax. And sometimes our bodies remind us of that. So we literally go, go, go until we hit exhaustion, and then we're forced to relax. So, what is preventing us from relaxing in the summer? Now, if you live really high up north, then, and again, this also for my lovely people that watch this in Alaska or Canada, you have exactly the same thing. I know. Maybe the sunlight is preventing you from relaxing because it keeps you awake all night. Hopefully, you've got some good blackout curtains or ways to kind of darken your room so you get a good night's sleep. But sometimes also our own expectations of what we hope to achieve, because it's summer and there's a buzz and the daylight, the sunlight, sorry, I should say, should give us extra energy. So why are we then feeling tired or feeling less inspired to do certain things? So I think it's very important that we allow ourselves that self-care also in the midst of summer. And sometimes, the ability to take that step back is something that, we forget to give ourselves because we have a lot of things on. And one of my clients, I will share her story now. I know she won't mind, but she pushed herself really hard and she ended up with a fracture on her foot. And that has obviously put her back. It's really frustrating. But as she said, oh, I have all these plans for the house, and now I can't do them because I am forced to, take it easy. And sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And sometimes it takes like external factors, or like I said, we get ill, maybe we get like a summer cold or something like that, or we get some kind of bug, and then we end up, having to take time out when we really didn't want to. I really think it's our body's ways of kind of taking the rest that we deny ourselves. So, you know, how can we prevent that? Well, first of all, I think there's like three things that we can do in the summer to make sure that we allow ourselves that self-care. And the first one is maybe also the biggest one, and that is to be honest with ourselves around how we feel, and then set some boundaries around that. Because often, like I said, we can get caught up in this, like, oh, like we have to do so many things in the summer. But what if we feel tired? What if we just kind of want to go to bed early? What if we, don't really want to have another barbecue, with someone, in the garden. Maybe we just prefer to sit in the garden by ourselves and read a favorite book. So being honest with ourselves and then setting clear boundaries around that. It sounds easy, but it can sometimes be really, really difficult. But it's a very important first step. And the second point kind of can help us, well, 2 and 3 can really help us with this, because it's about grounding ourselves so that we actually can feel the feelings, can feel how we feel, and allow ourselves to take action on that. And what do I say when I'm in grounding? Basically, I'm talking about dropping out of our heads, out of our own heads, where we live a lot of our lives, and drop into our body and allow ourselves to check in with how that feels. And I mean, there's many different ways of doing it. I am a great believer in literally being in nature, which again is also my third point, which is how to self-care is literally just to be in nature, because that is what summer invites us to do. So you could do 2 and 3 together. You can ground yourself, and you can ground yourself by being in nature. This was something that I wrote about in my last newsletter as well, so I've given you some ideas there. But genuinely, anything that kind of allows us to drop out of our heads and into our bodies, whether that is sitting in the garden listening to birdsong, whether your favorite thing is to maybe do something with your hands, maybe you are an arts and crafty person, again, that can kind of allow you to drop out of your head. It's kind of an active meditation, if you like. So meditation is another way of doing that, and just allow ourselves to get out of the thinking space and go into the feeling space of how are we actually doing, and acknowledging that, and then taking action. So as I said, spending time in nature is, for me, the ultimate grounding activity. And in Scandinavia, we can't spend that much time in nature a lot of the year, because, maybe there's a snowstorm or maybe it's just really generally bad weather. Generally, we do spend a lot of time in nature anyway, but in the summer is when in Scandinavia everyone moves outside. It's, people more or less are outside so much of the time. There's a trend for people even sleeping and camping outside in their own gardens. People are cooking outside, they are showering outside, they are just spending as much time as possible outside. And it's a beautiful way to kind of, yeah, just allow ourselves to be in nature, and also to take a lot of the distractions away that sometimes are around us. Nature in itself is obviously very, very calming for us. It's calming for our nervous system. And because we are nature, it kind of allows us to not kind of, I should stop saying that word, should allow us to come back to ourselves in an easier way, without having to think about it. On many different levels, it's good for our bodies to be outside. And whether it means that you're taking an active walk somewhere in the countryside, maybe you're sitting in your garden, maybe you are doing gardening work, whatever it is that kind of allows you to drop out of your head and into your body. And yeah, that's it, really the ultimate self-care. Also, sometimes, obviously, being in nature can be really tiring, because maybe we get sensory overload. And there's nothing more beautiful, I find, than actually having a little nap in the garden or on the beach, making sure that you're safe in the sun, obviously. And it's one of those luxuries that summer allows us to have. And paying attention to when we actually need that rest, can prevent us from reaching exhaustion and burnout. And sometimes, obviously, this is holiday season as well. A lot of people are going on holiday. Maybe they're really gearing up for the holiday. They need to finish so many things before they go. And then you're full. Well, a lot of people, I'm not saying you, but a lot of people will then notice that the minute they stop, that is when the cold sets in, or you're feeling achy. And why? It's because basically your body is telling you, you know, you should probably have stopped before this. And I've had many conversations with people, you know, that work in the corporate field, you know, like that. You know, why is it always that I, you know, like just as I'm about to go on holiday, that's when I fall ill? Well, basically, it's because you pushed yourself probably a bit too hard. You needed to rest a tiny bit before you actually went off on your holiday. And I know it can be hard. I'm talking from my own experience. I'm about to go away with my own son. I've got a lot of work that I need to finish, and at the same time, you know, I'm very excited to go away, and I don't want to have to take work with me. So, how do we balance that? And I think it's just realizing that it's very important that we honor ourselves and our boundaries. And at the end of the day, it is what is important to us to do. And maybe some of the things that we had in mind, and again, I'm using the analogy of being in the garden, you know, like maybe you had things planned for the garden. Yeah, maybe that's not going to happen just right now. Maybe it's not even going to happen, you know, this summer. But sometimes also taking that step back and changing, you know, like maybe the expectation or the perspective on it allows you to find a better solution. Anyway, so going back to my friend who had her foot fractured, I said to her, well, observe and see if any new ideas come, you know, for how you might solve the things you were hoping to do in the house. Because sometimes when we do, you know, like take that step back and we had it all worked out, other opportunities, other things just all of a sudden come out of the blue. And it turns out that that's a better choice anyway. So, you know, there's always a silver lining. So even, you know, like even if you make use of the time and no other alternative presents itself, at least you can then proceed with more calmness and maybe more space in your tightly packed timetable to move forwards. Hopefully, some of this makes sense. So, summer self-care, really about boundaries. Don't feel ashamed to acknowledge that you need to take some time out and do it before maybe your body forces you to with a cold or an ache. Be honest about how you're feeling, ground yourself, and we need that in order to find out how we're actually feeling. So, dropping out of our heads and into our bodies, whether you meditate, whether you do something with your hands, or even better, go into nature, which is the third one, which will allow you to not only ground yourself, but also to hopefully change your perspective and just calm yourself and your nervous system, making the most of the fact that summer is here in the Northern Hemisphere and enjoying as much of it as we absolutely can. I hope you have a lovely rest of the week ahead, and I look forward to seeing you again.